There's something I noticed on YouTube, and that's not enough people talking about unit photography or unit stills photographer. So I want to do a video all about that. Everyone loves the idea of working on movies, TVs and all of that, but they don't know how as a photographer they get in on that. And I want to discuss what it's like to be a unit stills photographer, tips and tricks I have, and how to get into that as someone who does unit still photography. In fact, I'm recording this a couple of days after I just wrapped on a music video where I started at 8 a.m. the day before and finished at 3 a.m. the day after. So it's a long ass day, okay? I also want to acknowledge that on YouTube, there's a lot of people who talk about unit stills photography as if like it's some cinematic moment that you're going to walk in with a Leica, there's going to be this beautiful moment and you're going to be working. For the most part, unit stills photographers are working on a variety of stuff, and the big films, you won't get as many as you think until you've established yourself. So I want to talk it as like an entry level because I think that's really important to keep it very real for you. I'm going to cover things like etiquette, how to behave, how to work even on smaller sets, how to make sure that they repeat book you, and the kind of shots maybe that you need to be looking to get. Because frankly, this industry is very small, and I think unit stills photography is even smaller. So what actually is a unit stills photographer, sometimes called a stills photographer? At its main core, this type of photographer is someone who shoots the production and captures it as a documentary, if you like. So it could be a lot of things. You could be working on film, TV, music videos, commercials, documentaries, short film, local film, theatre promo, and even YouTube, TikTok, Facebook productions now, podcasts, okay? Your job isn't to take just pretty pictures of what's going on. Your images actually serve a very careful business purpose for your client. So often my images are used in discussion with the agents, the brand behind, the production company. It's used in marketing, streaming thumbnails, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's sent to press. It's used in PR. It's for continuity references and preferences as well. Sometimes I have got in a movie that I was doing unit stills for, they asked me to look back at some of my images to see where a actor's hair was falling left or right because they hadn't got a picture of it in one of the scenes, and luckily I had a shot. It can be used quite heavily in social media. I think social media is probably one of the heaviest uses I've found with my work. Promotional stills, because you're capturing it as it happens, you are able to get these beautiful cinematic stills. If it is cinematic what you're shooting, don't all think that it's all going to be cinematic. It's not always. And you're also creating behind the scenes content. Now, to get into this industry, most people think you need some sort of Hollywood or some BAFTA kind of connection. And yes, it sometimes helps. In fact, I know it would. If Brad Pitt hired me, I'd be like, yeah, that's me getting into loads of other productions. But I didn't get that. Brad Pitt, hit me up. No, Keanu Reeves, hit me up. We're more on a vibe, babe. Me and you, Keanu. What you actually need is reliability, professionalism, understanding set culture, which is a whole different beast, and we're going to come on to that, and being the person that the crew wants around maybe 12 plus hours, because you are going to get lovely and cozy with them, and it is hard if you're a douchebag. I think a lot of people try and skip the smaller productions because they feel like somehow it's beneath them, and it's really not. Some of the best unit stills work I've had has been on these indie projects, working on the theatres, capturing the moment. I recently did one at a theatre where it was a kids theatre group, and clients, like parents who saw the pictures, booked me for additional work. So that was a great thing. But also, like, my work was then shared across many other theatre production, like industry specific magazines, and that got me more work as well. Because I was able to work with kids and I'm able to interact with them in a professional capacity, but also just calm their nerves if they got a bit nervous. Don't overstep that mark, but I was able to be remembered, not just because I was the photographer taking the pictures, but because I was a personality that people related to and got to know. It's really important. I also think smaller productions are where you can learn how not to be a liability. It's a great learning experience because the stakes are really still high, but it's not like you're on an A-listers movie and like you bash into the star, okay? Now, please understand, I am not poo-pooing the smaller productions, but if you get a call saying, hey, we need a unit still photographer on a student film, don't dismiss it straight away. There is so much you can learn on that. Particularly the more you work with different personalities, the better you are as a photographer and someone who works on the set, because I have seen people come in as assistants with me. I had 2 assistants that were hired by the production separately. One had worked on productions before and one had not. And one was incredibly rude to a lot of people, including the crew, like moving crew out of the way, stepping in front of camera lines. Not a good idea. In the end, got dismissed by the production company. The second one I've worked with quite a few times now, and has gone on now to be a primary in others. So it's been wonderful. There's some great places where you can pick up this work. Like if you're looking to start off, I would definitely think about looking into the Facebook groups, and like our town has a local film festival that we get involved with. The universities can help, but also just hanging around with creatives and musicians, you might find that you get in there. The one I did recently was because I actually knew her from the Susie I knew. She's an incredible creative person herself. I knew her from another industry event that we'd been at. I also met her on a panel that we were doing for a film thing, and then at the university, and then she was like, hey, do you want to come do this? And I was like, yeah, I'll come along. I'll come do that. So you see how these jobs all kind of marry up, because I was involved in the scene. Getting involved isn't just like offering your photography straight out there, but actually being interested in what people do. So I was able to photograph things like Postmodern Jukebox and people like that, because one, sometimes I just reached out and asked, and other times I was reached out to do it. So I've worked on a few sets now, and I've worked on quite a few music videos, and I've worked on a few TV productions. I've worked over here and in overseas. So I am kind of, I wouldn't say I'm like huge in the unit stills photography scene, because that would be absolutely terrible for me to suggest, but I definitely have a lot of experience in it. So I feel like this is the video that you need to be watching. So if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and hit below if you've got any questions. I'd love to answer them in the comments as well. Set etiquette is something that can destroy your career and also show that you are not prepared to move up in terms of budget of film, but also people won't want to work with you. And if you leave a bad impression with anyone, it can destroy your career very quickly. And I know it's really hard to say that. I know for a fact, and I've seen it happen. I have seen photographers who are not maybe the most incredible photographers get rebooked as unit stills photographers because the crew likes them and likes having them around because they've got a good energy. So don't worry if you think, oh, my work's not quite up to it. But if you are willing to try and make your work better, then that's already the hurdle done. But the etiquette on set is something that people really overlook. So some things that go without saying, I would hope that you already knew this, that you wear dark clothing, and the reason why you wear dark clothing is, one, for color cast, also you're not a distraction for anybody, and the second one is, while we're talking about distraction, is silent shutter. Now, it doesn't matter so much, I found, in the music video industry, because they're going to put a track over the top, but certainly get into the behavior of having a silent shutter. It does have its own problems. It can cause banding and some weird effects. So please, you look at it when you review your images. I found that the mirrorless systems are the best for this, but if you have a digital SLR, there is this box I've seen some photographers use. You can put your camera inside the box to reduce the noise, but a silent shutter means I can still shoot while they're shooting the take, okay, rather than just doing it in between on rehearsals. So for me, it allows me to have a lot more shots and a lot more opportunity to shoot. Never block the crew. Don't get in the way of the crew. Don't stop production so that you can get your shot. Every now and then when they're doing a makeup retouch, I'll jump in and get photos of them doing the makeup retouch, but I am not about to say, hey, could you just hold that for 2 seconds while I do this? Remember, there's a lot of money involved in this, and you do not have permission to turn around and pause a director. Respect everybody on the crew. Treat them like they are the head honcho. Be utterly wonderful to everybody. Like, if someone's a douchebag, just treat them with professionalism, and you can report if you want. But for me, I just treat, I've very rarely met a douchebag. I just treat everyone with respect, and that's it. If you treat me badly, I will continue to be respectful, but make a note that I never want to work with you again. Another thing that is a little bit depending on your production. So there's often NDAs, so non-disclosure agreements, but also sharing behind the scenes. Now, I was very lucky at the music video that I just shot recently. Like, the director was like, please share as much behind the scenes content as you want. It's really good for us. So there has been a slight shift I've noticed, but do not assume, and never do so unless you have explicit permission. Don't share anything, and particularly don't share personal space photos. So for example, I was on a production with a very well-known actor, and they asked me to go into their trailer to photograph them sat there. They wanted this for a much later article that was going to run on them. I would never be able to share that until the article was run, okay? And if the article was never run, I never got to share those images, because that is their personal space. There was personal things around for them, like their personal phone. There were some letters on the side. Now, you couldn't read it, but the fact is that is their personal, like, that's like photographing someone in their own home, okay? So be very mindful of that. Also, don't be that person that like constantly just photo. Be precise with what you do, because if you are just shooting everything, you're gonna have a lot to edit afterwards, but also you're gonna miss things. And we're all about capturing the narrative, the story, and thinking about why we're here as a unit stills photographer. Be really respectful of hair and makeup. Do not piss them off. Never do that. I think that is the worst thing I've ever seen. I was at a job. I think it was like a TV production, if I remember rightly, and the assistant runner, or one of the runners, had really upset the hair and makeup artist by doing something, and it was a very awkward moment on set. So make sure you don't do that. Remember, you are there to support the production. You are not the main character, okay? And you are not anyone important. Like, you have to remember that. You're going to get possibly given a call sheet, which will tell you what time people are and where. Make sure you revise that, look at it and see where you need to be in production for that. But also make sure you hang back and allow the main people to go in, do what they need to do. And if you can get in there, but be very cautious about getting in there. And it's something I'm going to be very, very particular about. Something I've learned along the way is often we as photographers feel like we need to take 2 camera bodies with us, sometimes more. I am all for bringing extra kit. However, I will just say, as someone who's worked quite a lot on these sets, do not have them hanging off the sides of you. I know a lot of people use a spider holster, or they'll use a double harness, which I do have. Please, please, please keep the kit in front of you, because I've seen it on a shoot where someone was walking around with a camera on their side and it hit a light stand and it caused a delay in production, and it just looked really unprofessional for you. You don't have as much space as you think you do on productions. I would always say take the smallest kit you can, but you need to be very careful about how you move around the set. And something I'm going to talk about is like a very old lady now. Shoes. Don't wear your squeaky trainers. And also think about the fact you're going to be on your feet a hell of a long time. Look after your feet, okay? We do not need to get feet problems, ankle problems, knee problems, hip problems because we are wearing incorrect footwear. I know that sounds really silly, but I swear the ones I wear are my On Clouds, which are this very spongy one that I love. They're huge stability. I also wear these platformed Converse, but they have an insole that's put in with arch support and heel support because Converse are too flat for me to wear all day, okay? Please, please, please think about your footwear, okay? Sometimes you'll be asked to wear steel caps, so you have to wear those, but you have to wear footwear that allows you to do your job. I've always found trainers are better for me. I just know that I don't want to be tired at the end of the day and me mess up because I haven't done my job right, because I've been like, oh, my feet hurt. I know it's a really silly thing, but yeah, be really good in communication with directors, with who you're reporting to. I often will fire off a couple of shots every couple of hours to that production team, put them on a gallery for them to review so they've got them going forward. Often when I'm doing communication, I'll say, is there something key that you want me to photograph this day? Because, for example, when one of the actors from a movie I was on was doing this makeup that they were having quite an intensive makeup session, please can you get a lot of that being applied, because that's really good for us. And they also wanted it in portrait and landscape, so you have to remember that. The whole idea was to show what the makeup artists and the special effects teams were doing, but also talk when they do interviews of behind the scenes, all these lovely things. And one thing I have started to adapt into it is doing short video clips. Now, I don't bring an additional thing. I just shoot it straight in my camera, which is why it's really nice to have a dual camera who can do that, like a hybrid camera. I use Nikon mirrorless. I can shoot really quickly on that, and it just allows me to go the back and forth, and then I can submit them as well. You don't have to do that, but I found, because I'm a unit still, so the fingers in stills, I have found that those sometimes can be really helpful. Although a lot of people use their mobile phone, it's just nice for the production to have a additional thing. Even if they never use it, it shows that I am doing a little bit extra, and that does guarantee me extra bookings, I have found. So you can steal that idea if you want. So what do you actually shoot when you're a unit still photographer? What are you shooting? Okay, so let me just go through some ideas. They're not the same for every production, but it does help if you know. So what might you shoot as a unit still photographer? This could be key art stuff, which is essentially what they're going to use on posters. It doesn't happen every time, but it could happen. It's something that they want to use. Pose promo. So they have an idea of like, we're just going to use this for a bit of social media. Can you do this for us? Live scene captures. So as it's happening, how it looks to the visual eye before they put any of the special effects on in post. Behind the scenes moments, crew laughing with each other, actors laughing, getting their makeup done, that kind of thing. As I said, crew interaction's a really good one. Them talking. One of the one I love is everyone crowded around the director's monitor. That's a really nice shot to get. People love that one. Social media content. So particularly if there's a brand that's sponsoring them, they might want to see their brand used a lot in the pictures. So say, for example, Rode mics were sponsoring or DJI was sponsoring. It's nice to just see them incidentally in the shots, but also just like the antics of what's going on. You might even find yourself having to, I know in the last production I did, they had us filming some reels for TikTok, which was quite fun. Again, continuity. You never know. They might need to review your images. They're asking you to check stuff. Sometimes it can be anything down to which way the actor's hair was going or which actor was standing there. And also environmental and location shots, where they're shooting, what it looks like, just to really tell the story of how this was all put together. Now, all of that brings a lot of challenges to you. And I know I'm hearing you. You're like, whoa, right. First of all, mixed lighting. There is going to be mixed lighting. And I have also found that with unit stills, you cannot add your own creative flair in the editing process. People want it to look like how it did. You might be able to get away with doing it in black and white, but for the most part, they want it to look how they intended it to look. So don't be there like desaturating the greens and making it like you want. I have found that they want it exactly as is. You do have to work fast and edit fast. I take a laptop with me, I edit on the go, I back up my cards and I edit and I put it into the gallery. Like I said, I put mine into Pixet, send it to my contact, and then they will download as they want. And it's something they really appreciated throughout the day. So obviously we were shooting from 8 a.m. one morning till 3 a.m. the next morning. So they were able to upload to their socials throughout the day with fresh imagery from me or as it was happening. Maybe there was like a 20-minute delay and just for me getting it, but they were able to do that. You are often shooting in low light. Although it's for video, you might find yourself a bit challenged. So low lights, you need lenses that work with that. And now while I love long lenses, please be mindful of the space and the room you have. So I do tend to take, I take a 35 or a 40 mil, I take a 24-70, and then in my bag is a 70-200 and an 85 mil. And I very rarely use the 70-200 just because I don't enjoy bringing that big lens out and using it that way. I'm hoping to get the new Tamron, which I think is like a 35 to a 10 something. So I really want that new one. I'll have to find out what that I really want to get that one. So hint, because I don't want that long, I don't need it. I've never found that I've needed it, but I've always got it there just in case, because you know, the one time I don't take it is the time I need it. You want to have as silent kit as possible, especially when you work on movies. It's not such a big problem on music videos, but again, prep yourself as if you are going into a movie, okay? Nobody needs to be editing out your camera clicks. So basically, a unit stills photographer is someone who understands documentary, but also sees the commercial aspects of it. It's intense. It's a hard job. But like I said, how do you get the work? And is it as complicated as that to get? Yes, it can be really hard to get the work, but it also can be really easy to get the work. So I would start off networking locally. Look for people who work in the music industry, even in a smaller scale, have their own, even if you know someone's shooting a music video and maybe they haven't got a big production, like consider applying and asking them if you can do it. And once you start getting used to being behind the scenes photographer, it will start building up a momentum for you and you will start getting better and more people will roll in. Don't be afraid to contact production companies directly yourself. Just offer your services. I've done that in the past and it's got me 1 or 2 gigs. So, you know, film festivals are a great place. I know not everyone has them, but they often have like places where you can apply to be the photographer. They're really good for you to do. There's also lots of groups on Facebook and places about filmmaking, so you can go in there and apply, and again, you can get a lot of work from that. LinkedIn is a great place. IMDb credits. I've got a few credits that I need to apply. Actually, I haven't put any of my IMDb on. And it's something I need to do. Building a portfolio yourself on the side and then like, you know, doing your own SEO and blogging about and talking about it is a really good thing as well. And remember, you're offering value. People will hire people they trust will solve the problems that they have. I think reliability is so important alongside like professionalism, but it doesn't always mean you have to be perfect, but you certainly have to be dependable. You also have to understand licensing and having your contracts in place. So please discuss that with everyone you work with. And it will depend on how then you charge your fees. I'm not going to go too heavily into charging fees because I will just say it is dependent on the production quite heavily. But as you move up the production budget, the money does increase. It depends entirely so much on the usage rights, how long you're going to be there, the turnaround time, what their own budget is, and whether they have decided they want one. I think it's a very niche area to get involved in. Always have backups of your images and keep them somewhere safe because you never know someone's going to come back and ask for them. But what makes you bookable? I think it's really important to remember you're trying to get booked. So what would make you bookable as a unit stills photographer? I think first important is fast turnaround. Get those images to those people ASAP as quick as you can, okay? Have an organized delivery system. Hence why I use Pixieset. There is a discount code below, but have a system that's really easy. Like if you're shooting multiple days, day 1, day 2, or location 1, day 1, like break it down so they know what they're looking for. Don't just give them a whole load of production like that, unless you're in one location for the whole time, which makes a bit more sense. Understanding social formats, that means being able to shoot vertical and horizontal and BTS content. And video, like I said, a little bit of video on the side's not going to hurt you. And you also got to understand marketing. I think the photographers are getting hired now think more than just that they are just photographers and just there for that. They think of the bigger scale to get themselves booked. Remember, you're creating content for this production company, so make sure you know how to create that content and give them formats in which they can then also create content from what you've provided. I do want to give a real big reality check, so I've made this sound really glamorous. Sometimes it is super long and super stressful and lots of hours. Last minute changes can happen. You think you're going off to this far-flung, beautiful location, but sometimes you're on the beach pretending it's summer and it's the middle of winter. Sometimes you're put up in hotels that are questionably awful. One production I was on, we were put in a hotel, and it wasn't the production's fault. They were told this was the rooms by the pictures, and we showed up and they were awful. They had to move us out like a day later. Sometimes there are egos on set, and I know we never talk about it, and I will never out whoever has a big ego unless they're a douche, like in a horrible way to me, but egos exist, and sometimes it's funny. Like, I've heard stories from unit still photographers where the principal actor, the lead actor, has said, I don't want to interact with anyone except my co-stars. Anyone who talks to me, fire them. I don't even know. Imagine being that important. It's tight spaces, it's awkward lighting, it's not set up for you, it's set up for the film and the movie or the production. So please be aware, you have no jurisdiction here to move anything. But if you genuinely love storytelling, production culture, and collaborative creativity, then unit stills is not a bad place to start working. And it is incredibly addictive. Like, I have met some amazing people, like just incredible people, and it's so cool to see them work on other projects, and sometimes they'll bring me in on other projects. I worked with somebody on a student film. They had offered their services to the student film as a lighting director. And I was like, this is really cool. We became friends. Next thing I know, they're hiring me to come do unit stills on a commercial. Then the guy who I was friends with introduced me to a assistant director on the commercial who's like, hey, we just started chatting. Then he asked me if I wanted to come on this music video. So from that music video, I then got onto a TV series. Like, do you see how... I do think unit stills is one of those photography career pathways that is a little overlooked. And I just had a quick look on YouTube. There isn't as many people talking about it as I thought there would be. I feel like everyone's fighting over portraits and weddings. And there's this great little area of photography that not many people are fighting for. And I just want to say, you do not need to be on Netflix or some Universal Studios or whatever production from day one. You need experience. You need to build relationships. You need to prove your professionalism and be consistent. So for me, if you want to be a unit stills photographer, I hope this has helped. It's encouraged you perhaps. I'd love to in fact, I would love to know, have you ever worked on something? Have you got any insights that I've missed? I know this isn't probably the most in-depth one, but I just noticed that when I was looking on YouTube, there wasn't as many. If you like this kind of advice, this blunt, honest, no gatekeeping advice, please consider liking and subscribing, because it helps grow the channel and encourages me to keep making videos like this, where I stop the gatekeeping in photography and be a voice in the crowd that helps inspire you, I hope. Anyway, this has been Khandie, and I'll see you all in my next video.